the most common lifting mistakes that are keeping people small and weak. So if you listen to our words of wisdom, you're going to make crazy gains in the gym. First one is the biggest sin of all, junk volume. Adding more sets as a means of progressive overloading. But what's really happening here is you're masquerading what actually matters, which is effort. That is one of the biggest separating principles that I've seen when I look at people in the gym. The average person, they're not trying. They're doing tons of sets. Imagine the person that's at the cable station doing triceps. They're doing more than 5 sets. If you just did 2 sets towards failure or failure, then you're going to get such awesome results. So if people were just to stop doing as much junk volume and making the sets that they do actually quality.
Yeah, I see it all the time. And when I was first getting into lifting, you would see these sort of online training plans of like, oh, this big shredded guy did this plan. And it was, 4 sets of 15 on everything. And I kind of slowly realized often they didn't train this way, or they were on anabolics and they had some assistance with the recovery. But you just can't recover from as much if you are really pushing the sets super, super hard. Now, some people do need a little more, but more often than not, especially if I see someone and they're not very developed and they're doing like 4, 5, 6 sets on an exercise, they're just sandbagging the first whole bunch or just sandbagging all of them.
100%. And I know this personally for myself. If I see 4 sets written for multiple exercises, say it's a push day, you had 4 sets of bench press, 4 sets of dips, and then 4 sets of chest flies. I know for a fact, especially on those compound ones, I'm going to pace myself so that I can actually make it to that 4th set. And it's trying to do more is really just hiding from what you should be doing in the first place. I mean, there is a time and a place for doing some more sets, as you said, 4 sets. But that's probably going to be the only exercise you're doing for that muscle group on that day.
Yeah. And if you can keep it high quality and recover, maybe, but you have to make sure that it's high quality. The quality comes first before you think about the quantity. If someone is a beginner and they are really into, say, high intensity training, I think that's totally fine because they have to learn how to push themselves rather than doing tons and tons of sets. Now, they can do more than 1 set in a lot of cases. I think 2 to 3 is a pretty good sweet spot, especially 2. But it has to be high quality. And most beginners don't understand how hard the sets need to be.
Yes.
Because they've never pushed themselves that hard.
And that is mistake number 2, which is a lack of intensity. People leaving too many reps in reserve. People stopping at what is referred to as technical failure, where they can't get the unanimously agreed upon full range of motion. The great example is a row of some kind where you're not getting all the way back. And this state of being too far from failure is doing yourself a disservice because you're not stimulating the muscle to the maximum. And it's one of the big reasons people stay small.
Yeah, and you'll feel tired from doing more. You'll maybe get a better pump, maybe you'll feel more fatigued, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's doing more. So you have to get out of this trap where if you're an intermediate especially, your work capacity might have developed and your repeated bout might be there to where you can do a lot of work, but it might be actually getting in the way of your progress. And so finding that sweet spot of volume where you can keep that effort level super, super high in order to make progress, that is very, very important. And it's something I see all the time where someone's like, they send me their training plan and I'm like, okay, well, let's just cut that in half. I'm like, what? No. How am I going to make progress with half the volume? Well, if I see their sets and there's no bar speed slowing down, that is the biggest thing. We're going to have to reduce your volume because there's just no way you're going to be able to do that much volume and keep that mental focus in order to have the sets be where they need to be. And I think often watching someone who already trains hard can be very, very informative. I can't tell you how many times, and you've probably gotten this too, where someone's like, oh, that's what it is. Like, that's what a hard set is, right? And they slowly realize, okay, I thought I was at failure or close to failure, but I actually had 4, 5, 6, 7 reps in reserve.
That's why it's so fun in this video that we're showing right now is overlaying some footage of us embodying what intensity should be, or what we'd like it to be when it comes to bodybuilding, and it's not comfortable at all. And that's why the framework of having 2 to 3 sets on average, it's so good advice for the majority of people, because then it constrains you to a less amount of work where you're going to be hungry to attack the sets. Take example 5 sets. You're not going to attack it with the tenacity of 2 sets.
Yeah, you're going to keep something. If you know that you're going to be doing that much work, you're going to lose something at some point. In the earlier sets, in the later sets, maybe you're getting ready mentally for the last set and then you take the last one to failure, or you try to go hard from the start and then you fall off because you can't get yourself sort of back to that point. You can maybe do it for 1 set and then a second set, maybe a third set on some easier movements, but beyond that, it's just really hard for 99.9% of people to really keep that high level of quality that is needed for growth.
Agreed. Next, we have program hopping, which on the surface doesn't seem that big of a deal. But when you look deeper under the hood, if you change exercises too often, you're not progressing on those lifts. You're starting a new exercise that has a new skill component. And it's not unusual for the average person to, extreme example, change exercise every single time they go into the gym. That's super common. So if you just don't do that, you follow some type of program for 4 weeks, you're probably better than the average person. But what we really want to see is sticking to a program. A good amount of time would be that 8 weeks, I'd say. Give or take. It's enough time for performance to trend upwards, you to lift heavier weights, you to use an element of double progression where you increase your reps as well as the weights. And then you can think of changing exercises that are similar to the ones that you've been working on.
And you want that continuity so that you can actually have progress. Because I think what a lot of people are doing is that when they switch movements, they're getting faster initial progress, right? And so if you keep the same movements, maybe you have this long, slow, but noticeable progression. When you keep switching movements, you see fast progress, and then it slows down a little bit and you switch. And then you see fast progress, it slows down, and you switch. And so you're seeing more overall progress. And so it can be actually quite motivational, but you're not actually making more overall progress. If I had to choose between having one movement go up 10% in a year rather than a bunch of new movements go up 30% in a year, I would choose the 10% one, especially if it's one I've been doing. Because if my RDL strength goes up 10%, I know that's real progress. But if I start doing like one-legged zerchers and like back extensions with a new bar, with a cambered bar, so there's more range of motion, and then maybe I do a good morning, but with a low bar position, so it's new and I can track it and it's different. I mean, those all might go up 20 or 30% in a month or two. And so it feels really nice, but it's not real progress.
That is the perfect example you gave, because the Romanian deadlift is an exercise that I program hopped with. Added exercise variation. You know why? Because it's hard. And then if you've been doing it for 8 weeks plus, the thought of coming in when the previous workout was hard and the one 2 weeks before that was hard, going and doing a new posterior chain movement is the best thing in the world, especially if no one else is there coaching you, because you get the sense of novelty, different movement, you get that novel muscle soreness that comes from doing a different pattern. But you know what? My biggest gains were when I've overcome that temptation to program hop. And as boring as it might seem on paper, stick to that Romanian deadlift, get stronger at it. And you know what? Without all the fancy exercise variation, constant swapping, muscle confusion, it's reflected in my posterior chain muscle mass and strength, because the logbook's gone up and I faced my demons, and that's a good feeling.
And having that slow progression is kind of expected once you're at that past your skill acquisition. So if someone has never done a Romanian deadlift and they start doing it, you will see pretty fast progress. Once it slows down, that's a good thing, because it means that it's actual real progress, right? So you've gotten that part out of the way. that skill acquisition, now you're into the real gains. So people should look at it like that, not that, oh no, my progress slowed down. Okay, now I got that stupid skill acquisition part out of the way, I can start making some sweet ass gains, right?
Yeah.
So that's a totally different mindset than I think a lot of people are taking, but it's more in line with what is actually going on.
That is such an awesome way of highlighting it, because you think something's going wrong.
Yeah.
You got to change something. My progress is slowing down.
I'm plateaued.
No, but it's that whole you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You just go a little bit further forward.
Yep.
And stick through with it, and embrace the hard. Because hard. You look at all the stuff we're talking about.
Yep.
What is the hard option? Is the most simple heuristic.
Yep.
The bro science in me. I don't want to justify anything. Just do what's hard.
Yeah. If something is much easier, then it's probably not going to be more effective. We shouldn't go out of our way to make our training harder than it actually is, but we should realize that if you're pushing your training, it's going to be difficult. And there's just no way around that. There's no way to make a leg day easy, right? Like if someone advertises like this is an easy way to gain muscle, it's just marketing. It's just marketing, nothing else.
100%. And another way that we try and get away from the hard stuff is doing too many isolation exercises. The extreme example of someone trying to cobble together a leg day that is anything but the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try and hit the deadlift muscles by doing a glute isolation, 2 hamstring curls, and the math on that with the fatigue as well as the stimulus compared to this exercise, it's extremes. But we do see a common problem with people doing too many isolations at the expense of their compound.
Yep.
And the way that can show itself is you may have a compound exercise in your routine, but then you've got all these other isolations afterwards where you don't invest the time and effort and focus into those compound lifts, which are probably one of the better proxies for muscular development.
Yeah, I've seen leg days sent to me that were something along the lines of seated adductor, seated hamstring curl, leg extension, back extension, hip thrust, and those aren't bad movements, but I think you're lacking something in terms of where is a squat pattern, where is a hinge pattern, right? And at a back extension, it's a hinge pattern, but it's not as heavy hitting as an RDL, as a stiff-legged deadlift, as a deadlift from the floor, as maybe a mid-shin rack pull. I think you want something there that is challenging and is going to be a little bit more total body, a little bit more balance, bracing, coordination. And it is tempting to run away from those. It is easy to sell people like, oh, don't do your squats, don't do front squats, don't do back squats. Leg presses, oh, these are terrible. Just do like one leg extensions instead. Like, see, it's working. Both are working at the knee, but I think you are, in a lot of cases, losing something. And especially with these big movements, they are fatiguing. They are tiring. They do take a lot out of you, but I think they also give you something back in return that you might not be able to get no matter how many sets you do of these smaller movements, which again are not bad movements, but I look at them almost as a supplement to these bigger lifts. So you do the big stuff early and then you can do them after. Potentially you could do some smaller stuff first as almost like a warm-up. So that maybe you find that if you do your adductor work before your squats, they feel really nice. Like that's fine. But having your workout be only isolation, I don't see that working well.
No, it's a big stimulus, big fatigue from compounds. And I do agree with what you said about just say there's this much stimulus from the compound. Even if you added up all the stimulus from the isolation, if it's to 100 and it's to 100, it's very hard for us to explain. I don't know the exact science behind.
You're missing something.
You're missing something. And when I have a hard time explaining a rationale, I just look to what most people are doing.
Right.
We're not reinventing the wheel with this. It's what most advanced lifters are doing and is recommended by experts. Like a compound should be a key focus because you also get motivated too by it. It's nice having some metrics and numbers that you can look at, whereas the isolation stuff, sure, the weight lifted and stuff matters, but it really is an addition to what you should be doing with your compounds.
Yeah, and so this is something that people are already doing, right? Like if you look at most either natural or enhanced advanced lifters, their leg day usually has some kind of squat pattern. Maybe not necessarily a back squat or a front squat, but there's something where you're extending the hips, you're extending the knees. Could be a leg press, could be a hack squat, something like that. And then there's also usually a hinge, often an RDL. Those are very popular. Stiff leg, deadlift from the floor, a rack pull, something with could be a dumbbell RDL. Those are fine as well if you can find heavy enough dumbbells. But there's something there. Heavy squat pattern, heavy hinge pattern, and it's usually for like low to moderate reps. Often not like set at 20 on squat. Like that's fine, but I think there's something to maybe a little bit heavier on those if you can.
Yeah, for sure. And you can take your physique a really far way with predominantly compounds. I mean, you look at my world of calisthenics, we don't have a lot of exercise options.
Right.
For targeting the chest, we're going to do mainly dips, weighted dips. And if you just look at the overall development that you can get from that one lift, fantastic. And then the icing on the cake could be, okay, I want some more upper chest, or I want to do some isolation as an addition to put the finishing touches there, because just doing 6 sets of dips, probably a little bit redundant in terms of the fatigue that you're getting from that. But if you do your 2 to 3 heavy progressive overload with whatever rep range plus some isolation, fantastic. It's just to drill this point home, it's the neglecting of compound exercise. They should be at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, they are the cake, and then the icing would be the smaller stuff. And you don't want to neglect either. You ever had cake with no icing? Well, like, what is it?
My God,
you need the icing too.
That does not sound like a cake to me. That just sounds like just pathetic.
Learn how to master calisthenics from beginner to advanced level. Shop FitnessFAQs workout programs and transform today.
Next up, we have, when you are training, the muscle that you're trying to work should be the limiting factor. And this is where technique comes into play. So someone's training their back and they're using a pulling path that doesn't target their lats.
I've done that many times myself, where if you're a little bit arm dominant, you start to, pull and you're kind of shrugged up and you're almost doing like a hammer curl or something, and it's just bad technique, right? But it's how you are strongest. That's why you're doing that. You're pulling with the upper back, you're pulling with the traps, with the arms. Whereas if you want to target the lats, you got to drive down in that arc.
Arc motion is a big one.
And so if you don't know at least a little bit about biomechanics, then it's very easy to just say, oh, I'm doing pull-ups. Like that should be working this area, when in fact it's not. And almost once you know biomechanics, you can see it everywhere. You just see someone like, okay, well, he thinks he's working this, but he's actually working tricep or something like that. And so it is very, very useful and very, very valuable. Whether it's you're doing your squats and you think it's quads and it's a little bit of quads, but it's a lot of hips. Maybe you're doing a hip drive where the hips are way back and it's more posterior chain, or maybe you're doing an RDL and you think it's hamstrings, but maybe the erectors are coming more into play. And that could be intentional, right? Like the way I do my Romanian deadlifts, it's quite a lot of back, but I know that. And so I know how to program in order to sort of add back in what was taken out by the technique that I had. Whereas if I didn't understand what was going on, and I'm saying, oh yeah, I'm working my hamstrings with this, they're doing something, but they're not doing as much as if I had like a flat back, pushing the hips way back, keeping the knees fairly straight, and keeping it more as like a strict hinge.
So the muscle being the limiting factor is a combination of using the technique that you should for the movement and muscles being trained. And you can know this based on a few things, such as a pump can be a good sign, not perfect in every situation, but it can give you an indication that that area is being worked, as well as the muscle stopping you from completing the lift as you go. And DOMS.
Soreness.
Soreness, those ones. So a bit of basic research on technique. It isn't overly complicated. Some people make it out to seem that way, but you'll know for pressing, pulling, hinging, squatting, how to shift things to target the muscles that you want. Inconsistent workouts. Oh, I hate this one. It is the equivalent of yo-yo dieting. So we have people that want to lose fat, so they cut their calories completely, they can't sustain that, and then they binge, they go from one to the other, no good. The same thing happens with workouts. People train 6-7 days a week because they think they should. You know, it's got to be hard if you're working out, but it's not sustainable. Then they have a week where they skip the gym, and just this inconsistency in how much you do. And the biggest thing that I see from people that succeed is they stick with a frequency that they can manage in the best, average, and worst of times.
Oh yeah. No, if I see someone and they say, oh, how many days can they make it to the gym? 3 to 5, I'm not doing 5. I'm not doing 4, I'm doing 3, and we're gonna draw that line in the sand. We're not gonna go below 3. So we're gonna make it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and if you can't make it one of those days, because you know life happens, something big comes up, okay, maybe we go Monday, Thursday, Saturday, right? You bump things back and it's totally fine. Whereas if you're trying to go 5 days a week, you just don't have as much wiggle room in order, oh, you missed a workout, oh, what do I do? Do I push it back? Now it's into the next week, and so I would say just people should be honest with themselves, and you can still make really good gains on 3 days a week. Or even 2 days a week. I think 2 days is going to be worse than 3, but 3 is still pretty good. Like you can get a lot done with upper, lower, upper, and then lower, and then alternating sort of ABA, BAB type of situation, or just 3 full body workouts. That's fine as well. But if someone says to me, oh, I can't make gains off of 3 days a week, they better be pretty darn advanced in order to justify that. If someone is getting into it and they're like, but I can only go 3 days a week, that's plenty if you know how to structure things and then how to push yourself as well.
I would be looking at how consistent you are over the span of 6 months.
Yes.
And if you are able to stick to that 3 days per week for 6 months, awesome. Then you can choose to scale it up from there. But less is more, especially if you're newer to gym, training, all this good stuff. You want to be itching to go. Like you'll finish most of these weeks, damn, I want to do that extra one. But the reverse of that is people biting off more than they can chew, and they're just having to sum up the motivation. Oh, damn it, I got to go train again. That's not the state you want to be in. You want to love it.
Yeah, you want to be able to think about, oh, I get to go lift. You want to really be itching and looking forward to your sessions for sure. And if you're not, it could be too many days in the gym per week. It could be just the wrong training plan. Some people, I really want to get big, and then they have like a powerlifting plan or something, so there's just this discrepancy. There's nothing wrong with powerlifting at all, but there's just this discrepancy in terms of what they want to do and then what they're actually doing. And there are so many rules that people kind of think up, like, oh, I could never do a hamstring curl before a squat. Like, oh no, it's fine. Like that, there's nothing wrong with that. And so, making sure that you're actually enjoying it and you're looking forward to all of the movements that you're doing, I think is huge. I get sent these optimal exercises. Oh, why don't you do this? And maybe I'll try it, but if I don't like it, if I'm not excited to do it, then I won't do it. But if maybe I try something, iliac pull down, like that feels nice. If I'm looking forward to it, then maybe I'll keep it in.
So the bonus mistake you've just sprinkled in there, this was going off script here. I love this, is doing exercises that aren't fun. Well, not everything that you do is going to be absolute bliss. When you're balls deep in a set of RDLs, you're going to question whether you should do it. So there is a fine line here, but the majority of the movements in those main patterns should be ones you enjoy. You like doing pull-ups more than like pull-downs, you do that. You like doing weighted push-ups more than bench press, knowing the pros and cons of each. Who's to say you should do whatever you want?
And this is where some people might say, oh, but that's not optimal. But if you enjoy something or not, that is part of the equation of optimal, right? It's not just like, oh, biomechanically. No, if you enjoy it, you're going to put more effort into it. You're going to be doing it more consistently. And those are much more important factors to most people compared to like, oh, is this exactly working this fiber or something, right? Like that is only really going to matter to ultra advanced, super ambitious, really, really results focused trainees. For most people, that process needs to be as sustainable as possible in order to keep that process processing.
Shout out to Intel AMD. We also see no progressive overload or aggressive overload. people doing the exact same workout routine month after month, year after year.
Yeah.
Absolutely no change in any of the main parameters.
Yeah.
And it's a recipe for staying the exact same
Yeah.
in all departments. On the flip side, you also see people just, this workout, this is the one. I'm going to just go as hard as I physically can. And that's not sustainable, increased injury risk, and you can't repeat that. So we want to see progressive overload. By the very name of it, it means incremental, consistent, long-term advancements in what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I used to fall prone to the second part, probably because I'm just a naturally more sort of optimistic and ambitious person when I'm like, oh no, I could totally do this. And so I'd have epic workouts followed by really bad workouts, and but then the bad workout freshens you up because it wasn't a good performance. And so you're ready for another epic workout. And so it's just sort of doing German volume training on deadlifts every 2 weeks or something, and then being wiped out.
Why do you think I was able to come up with this phrase? Because I definitely fit into that camp, and I know there's a lot of people listening who do that as well. That's why it's a 2-for-1. So it catches most people. Tempering yourself is just one of the biggest separating pieces, because it's really the accumulation of everything you do. And that restraint for the people that go too hard, like that can really transcend your existing level.
Yeah, just save it for next time. Like just save a little bit of that oomph, a little bit of that fire. Like you can leave the gym feeling okay. Like I would think that would be wrong. Like no, you got to be wiped out. Like you got to feel destroyed after a workout. Of course, like that's what you do in the gym.
I was operating for a very long time.
Right? Like if you don't feel like borderline messed up, go do some more until you feel that way.
It's the drill sergeant ethos where it's let's just burn you into the ground in this one moment.
Yeah.
But it comes with a consequence. You might not make progress for 1 or 2 weeks on the same workout.
Yeah.
And it's a really big mistake, that aggressive overload, especially if you just started a new training phase, new exercise and stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to go as hard as you can on week 1.
Oh yeah.
What are you going to do for the next 8 weeks?
Yeah. You need to build momentum. And this is where reading about training can be useful, but sometimes you can read about training all day. You can go on some websites and listen to people talk about training and go on podcast, and that's fine, that's useful. But I think sometimes you get too fired up throughout the day, and then front squat, so I would get obsessed with front squats, and I'd be doing front squats every day, and then I just got out of the habit of doing front squats. I would never do them again.
Because it's just on your mind constantly.
Exactly, just constantly. Olympic weightlifting, practicing the cleanest. It's just, it needs to be more drawn out, and you got to have that passion and then sustain it over a long period of time, right? That's what is actually going to make the biggest difference.
Definitely. That is real sound words of wisdom there. Whether people will apply it, that will separate the bros from the bros,
we'll see. And then the other side of people who I do see fairly often where, they're doing the 3 sets of 10. I'm like, yep, this is my weight on curls, 3 sets of 10. And they need more ambition. They need more passion. They need to actually get a little bit of that other person's enthusiasm and optimism and take that into their training, because they're just like going through the motions and they need to. That's fairly common as well, right? I think there's say maybe 5 or 10% of people in the gym who have that sort of ambition and optimism.
Aggressive overload.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's some people in the middle who are doing things well. But I would say probably 50-60% of people in the gym are just like, well, I'm here to
agree.
And if they like that, that's fine. But if there's this differential between their goals and their mentality, they're like, oh yeah, I'm training to be like a professional natural bodybuilder. You look at their training and you're like, okay, well, you're gonna just change some things, you know? So I think that's where there's an issue.
And those people that are doing no progressive overload comes into all these little sneaky factors. The junk volume, not doing exercise you like. And it can really handicap your ability to train the way you should.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's all kinds of little places where the weight training calories can sneak in, and it turns great training into good training, into okay training, into just mediocre training, a little bit by bit by bit.
Yeah. Another one I see is a warm-up woe. Doing extensive warm-ups at the expense of focusing on what matters, which is your workout self. Very normal to see people in the gym, they come in, 15, 20 minutes of total warming up. We're doing band activation exercises for the glutes on leg day.
Yeah.
We're doing excessive rotator cuff rotations, scapular stuff before upper body day.
Yeah.
And I used to do it.
Yep.
I used to do it. And it takes away your mental focus because you're spending that time. It's all total time in the gym. It's precious, your ability to focus for an hour.
Yep.
So what is recommended is doing progressively heavier warm-up sets of the exercise that you're doing for the day.
Yep.
Is the best form of activation that you can do. Your body's very smart in that respect.
Yep.
Combined with a general warm-up, walking,
Yep.
just increase blood flow, shouldn't take more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I would say this often goes hand in hand with too much volume because someone's not actually recovered. And I used to, this is not me calling out other people, it's almost calling out myself because I'd be doing that epic workout and then trying to come in 3, 4, 5 days later and like you're still sore, or maybe you're not sore, but you're still kind of crunchy, you're beaten up. You know, you can kind of, you know what I mean, where you're warming up on bench and you're like, this is going to take a little while.
You're trying to essentially trick your body into giving you something for the day.
Exactly.
So the caffeine equivalent of exercising.
Yeah, I saw Larry Wheels warm up. He's like, yep, my elbows start popping, and after a while they stop popping, and then I bench. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't sound good. And I was kind of the same way, right? Like I would take many warm-ups of squats to get feeling good and get balanced and have the joints feeling good. But it was because I was just doing too much and I wasn't really recovered. And you can still get mentally up and fired up after the warm-ups and maybe still progressively overload, but it's just not really sustainable.
No, it's not. And it's not the most useful thing that's driving your progress.
Right.
So don't do that. Do what matters, training hard. Not having a training log, oh man, this pet peeve. If I could, often just one thing to tell people, keep a training log. It doesn't have to be an 8-week program where next week I need to up it by this weight and this many sets, this many reps. A training log should be the exercises written down. You have a set and rep range, and then you write in there how much weight you've lifted, and then you keep looking at that long term. The reason for this is because it puts your workouts in perspective. There is no way that I could be motivated and consistent long term if I had no idea of what I lifted previously and how that allows me to go in for the day and have a goal. I think this is why people go in, they do their 5 sets of isolations. They're
never keeping a training log.
They're never keeping a training log. There's no metric for motivation.
Exactly. You need to keep it. And this is where I've had people ask me questions along the lines of, oh, but if you're training hard and you're training to failure, you'll progressively overload and therefore you won't need to write it down. But the issue is it doesn't really work very well. If you talk to most advanced, either natural or enhanced lifters, they all know their numbers. They all know like what is a good performance, bad performance, okay performance, and it's generally written down. Like there are very few people who just don't track, right? I think when it comes to diet, a lot of people don't track, but for your training, there's just so many numbers and all the numbers matter that you're not going to remember it. In theory, it doesn't work.
And it helps you in all respects. For the person that is not doing progressive overload, seeing it on paper can at least give you a ballpark that you know that you have to aim to improve. And then if you have the Jeffs, the Daniels, the people watching YouTube who may be doing aggressive overload, it can give you an element of restraint so that you can keep progressing.
Because it is that progressive overload in the long term, right? And so that keeps you accountable, not just what did I do last week, but the week before that, the month before that, because at the end of the day, that's what matters most.
Definitely. Perfect. If people follow those, they'll be making all kinds of progress, I'm sure, because it's helped me and it's helped you as well. And if you want to see more of Jeff and Daniel, we've got a playlist of us embodying these principles as well. So check it out, fellas.